The story begins in the year 1988. Tokyo is a peaceful city until a big disaster leaves only a giant ground. 31 years later, people rebuild the city as Neo-Tokyo on an artificial island in Tokyo Bay. The scene shifts to a small bar where Shotaro Kaneda, leader of the biker gang known as the Capsules, is picking music on a jukebox when his friend Yamagata runs in. Yamagata says a rival gang, the Clowns, is in their area. Then we see the main character of our story, Tetsuo Shima, who is riding a high-tech custom bike and admires it. The bike belongs to Kaneda, who begins to tease Tetsuo, saying the bike is made just for him and might be too powerful for Tetsuo to handle. Tetsuo wants to prove himself, so he joins the gang as they go to fight the Clowns. Soon they find their rivals. Kaneda plays a dangerous game with a clown member, making him fall off his bike. Just then, police sirens start wailing and the Clowns run away. At the same time, a strange man drags a child with an unusual appearance through the crowded streets. The man is bleeding badly, but keeps running, pushing through traffic, and even fighting two police dogs on his way. He hides in an alley and enters a protest area by mistake. Unfortunately, a spotlight finds him, and officers tell him to stop. Desperate, he shoots at the light and the police fire back. In the chaos, he tells the child to run and find someone named Ryu. As glass breaks and lights explode, the child suddenly disappears. Back with the Capsules, the gang chases the Clowns into a tunnel. A clown throws a firebomb to slow them down. Kaneda stops his bike, but Tetsuo keeps going alone. While chasing a clown, Tetsuo knocks him off his bike after a small crash. Suddenly, the strange child appears in the road. Tetsuo cannot stop, and his bike explodes. Surprisingly, the child is not hurt but looks scared. Kaneda and the gang arrive to help Tetsuo, but bright lights shine down from above. Army helicopters and soldiers land, telling everyone to get down. A voice inside the child's head says there is no escape. Another child, who looks oddly old and sits in a chair, warns that life outside is not safe and they must go home. Colonel Shikishima, the military leader of Neo-Tokyo, orders the children in the gang to be taken to their base. Soldiers take Tetsuo away, and when Kaneda tries to stop them, they hit him in the stomach. Later, the police take the Capsules to a station. They lie, saying they were visiting Kaneda's sick mother and fighting the Clowns, who are now in the hospital. The police believe them and allow them to go. Outside, Kaneda sees a girl he noticed earlier and lies to the police she is also their group member. He successfully manages to move the girl out of police station. Then he asks her to join them. She first thinks he is flirting, but later understands Kaneda's intentions, saying she owes him a favor. Inside a high-tech lab, scientists put Tetsuo in a strange machine. Colonel Shikishima and Dr. Onishi watch him. The doctor says Tetsuo is showing strong psychic energy, awakened by his meeting with the strange child. The colonel wonders if Tetsuo will get powers like the legendary Akira and if the military can control him. The doctor warns that if Tetsuo loses control, they must stop him. Tetsuo hears the name Akira, and it begins to haunt him with strange visions. Later, a nurse brings food to Tetsuo's room but finds it empty. Outside, we see him with his girlfriend Kaori, who is telling him about her day when Tetsuo wearing a hospital gown. Over a meal, he tells her that something is messing with his mind and that he wants to run away with her. The next day, we see Kaneda being informed that his bike is being stolen. The gang looks out the window and finds out it is Tetsuo, who is riding away with Kaori on the back. In a short moment, he rides into clown territory, but he is not skilled enough, and his bike loses balance. Kaori sees bikers chasing them. One clown grabs her, and another hits Tetsuo with a pipe, pinning him down. The Clowns try to burn Kaneda's bike, but the Capsules arrive for rescue and fight them. Tetsuo gets enraged. He begins to yell at Kaneda that he always shows up and helps him. He feels sick of being dependent on him. Suddenly, he gets a terrible headache and sees visions of the name Akira. Soon, he collapses, shaking with fear. The army is watching everything. A doctor orders soldiers to capture Tetsuo. They rush in, inject him with a sedative, and hold him down while Kaneda tries to stop them. A soldier knocks Kaneda to the ground, and they take Tetsuo away in an army truck. That night, as the gang gathers, an explosion shakes the area. People scream and run. Kaneda sees the girl from the police station and follows her into the sewers. There, she is in a gunfight with officers. In the fight, one officer dies. Kaneda jumps in and helps her escape. At the same time, the colonel goes to a secret facility. Wearing a heavy coat, he takes an elevator down into a freezing underground chamber. A massive ice-covered door opens, showing a giant cryogenic chamber with a metal structure labeled Akira. Somewhere else, Kaneda and Kei team up with Ryu to infiltrate the military lab and find Tetsuo. They disguise themselves as workers and sneak into the facility. Tetsuo's powers grow even more intense, and he starts seeing hallucinations of strange toy-like figures. They attack him, but Tetsuo realizes he has the ability to control his environment. He breaks out of his room and makes his way to a mysterious location, the baby's room, where the espers, Masaru, Kyoko, and Takashi, try to stop him. They engage in a psychic battle, but the Colonel and Dr. Onishi intervene, warning Tetsuo not to push his powers too far. Kyoko telepathically informs Tetsuo of Akira's existence, and Tetsuo demands to know where to find him. As the building crumbles around him, he powers through and destroys everything in his path. Kaneda, piloting an aerial vehicle, crashes into the room, and Tetsuo, now full of power, attempts to destroy the building. Kaneda tries to reach him, but Tetsuo, now fully confident in his abilities, declares he no longer needs help from anyone. As Tetsuo's psychic abilities spiral out of control, he's confronted by Kyoko, who urges him to stop, but he refuses. His powers reach a peak, causing massive destruction. Meanwhile, Kaneda attempts to reach him, only to be thrown aside. Eventually, Tetsuo, feeling the weight of his new abilities, faces off with Akira's remnants in an emotional and destructive battle. Tetsuo returns to the bar where it all began. After some time, Yamagata and Kaisuke enter the bar and find it trashed. They discover the bartender dead, and Tetsuo appears acting strangely. Yamagata demands answers, but Tetsuo only mocks them before attacking Yamagata and killing him. Meanwhile, Kaneda and Kei are in jail, where Kei explains that Akira is absolute energy. She compares his power to a microorganism, suddenly gaining intelligence, but only knowing how to consume. Suddenly, their cell door unlocks, and they escape. The three psychic children discuss using Kei to stop Tetsuo. Meanwhile, martial law is declared in the city. Outside a wrecked bar, police take away a dead body, suspecting the escaped subject did it. The next morning, Kaneda learns that Yamagata is dead, killed by Tetsuo, who now seems completely different. In grief, Kaisuke takes Yamagata's bike and speeds it into a wall, making it explode to gain powers like Tetsuo, but nothing happens. Suddenly, he hears Kei scream and runs to her. He goes to check and finds out Kei meets Takashi, one of the psychic children, and in a strange moment, Kei walks on water toward Takashi, and they both vanish. As everything falls apart, a voice, Kyoko, explains that Akira's power is inside everyone, but must be used wisely. She says Tetsuo has already made his choice, and hints that others share the blame. Kaneda and his allies take Kei, hoping she can stop Tetsuo's destruction. Somewhere else, a huge roadblock is set up with tanks at the front. In a tense moment, a helicopter flies by and crashes into a building, making the tanks prepare for battle. Rising from the fire, Tetsuo appears wearing a cape made from torn fabric. A tank fires a shell at him, but it slows down right before hitting him and then explodes. Unstoppable, Tetsuo destroys every military checkpoint in his way. He heads for the stadium, where Akira is supposed to be. Inside the stadium, Tetsuo enters the chamber and sees Kei again. She begs him to stop misusing his power, warning that he will soon be not able to control his powers. Tetsuo finds out Kei is under influence of the psychic children. As the building shakes from his energy, Tetsuo demands to know where Akira is. Meanwhile, Kaneda arrives and sees the destruction Tetsuo has caused. Searching the ruins, he finds an experimental laser gun. As the ground collapses and the chamber where Akira is kept rises, Tetsuo and Kei fight on top of the structure. Their psychic battle sends sparks and debris flying. Kei struggles but is overpowered, crashing to the ground. The fight destroys most of the chamber, leaving behind a small mysterious sphere. Tetsuo opens it, expecting to meet Akira, but finds only canisters. Confused, he listens as speakers announce that these canisters hold Akira's remains, what was left after his power destroyed Tokyo 31 years ago. Later, Tetsuo arranges the canisters around himself, trying to harness their power. Kaneda approaches with a laser gun, and they argue. Tetsuo accuses Kaneda of always controlling him, while Kaneda fires his gun. Tetsuo blocks the shot with his powers. Kaneda fires again, but Tetsuo dodges easily. The fight intensifies. Tetsuo lifts Kaneda and debris into the air. Kaneda, desperate, shoots again but causes little harm. Trying to hide, Kaneda calls out to Kei, revealing his location. Tetsuo unleashes an explosion that forces Kaneda out. Kaneda fires through a wall, creating dust that hides Tetsuo. When it settles, Kaneda is seen aiming carefully. A shot hits Tetsuo's stomach, but does little effect. Another shot fails as the gun's battery dies. Frustrated, Kaneda throws it aside and challenges Tetsuo to fight barehanded. Tetsuo mocks him, asking if he knows what it's like to feel weak. Then, glowing particles gather around Tetsuo, melting his skin before a huge explosion shakes the area. The Colonel sees that his ordered orbital laser strike hit its target and prepares a second shot. Amid the destruction, Tetsuo finds that his arm has been completely burned away by the laser. High above, Kaneda tries to drop a rock on Tetsuo, but his power makes the attack useless. As another laser beam strikes, Tetsuo forms a shield around himself and Kaneda. In a bold move, Tetsuo flies into space to intercept the spacecraft, making it crash. At sunset, its burning fragments rain down on Neo-Tokyo as Tetsuo creates a new arm from metal and rubble, showing his increasing power. Meanwhile, Dr. Onishi studies the psychic patterns of Akira and Tetsuo, noticing they are almost the same. This discovery shocks the military. At the stadium, Kaori climbs stairs to a throne surrounded by Akira's remains. She hears Tetsuo crying in pain and rushes to help. At the same time, the colonel arrives, furious that the doctor hid the truth about Tetsuo's power. Fearing another disaster like before, the colonel demands answers. Kaori reaches the throne and is horrified by Tetsuo's arm, now a mix of flesh and metal. Tetsuo, in pain, insists the arm still works. Suddenly, cables shoot from his arm, attaching to the chair. The colonel asks if he is suffering, but Tetsuo dismisses him, telling him to bring more medicine. The doctor warns that Tetsuo's powers are breaking through the drugs and might soon overwhelm him. The colonel insists he return for treatment, but Tetsuo mocks the idea, comparing himself to the psychic children. Then he throws the colonel back with his power. Tetsuo asks Kaori for more medicine, but the colonel refuses and shoots him in the arm, sending him flying. Tetsuo's arm, now a mix of flesh and metal, flops on the ground. Shockingly, he launches it at the colonel, wrapping around him. A sudden beam of light breaks it apart, making it retreat into Tetsuo. Meanwhile, Kaneda returns with spare batteries for the gun and fires again as Tetsuo. Kaneda drives away, but a pile of rubble almost falls on him. Miraculously, it misses. Takashi, one of the psychic children, shields Kaneda, while Kyoko and Masaru approach Akira's remains. Tetsuo prepares to attack again, but Kaneda distracts him with another shot, making Tetsuo scream in pain. Then, Tetsuo's body mutates uncontrollably. His flesh expands into a monstrous form. In terror, he engulfs Kaori, and Kaneda is thrown into him. Desperate, Tetsuo begs Kaneda for help, saying he is crushing Kaori but cannot stop. Kaneda, full of sorrow, fires his gun, but it is useless. As the monstrous flesh spreads toward the children, Akira's remains explode, releasing a sphere of light. From this, Akira's young form appears. The sphere grows, mirroring the past disaster. Kyoko teleports the colonel away before the sphere consumes Tetsuo. In his final moments, Tetsuo calls for Kaneda. Kaneda, determined, tries to save him. Takashi joins him, saying none of this was Kaneda's fault. Kyoko and Masaru also enter, hoping to save Kaneda and maybe Tetsuo. Inside the shrinking sphere, the psychic children say they summoned Akira to take Tetsuo away. Kaneda sees memories, teaching Tetsuo to ride a bike, saving him from bullies and their childhood bond. He also sees Akira and other test subjects from past experiments. Outside, scientists confirm that the energy signals a new universe being born. The psychic children bring Kaneda back to Neo-Tokyo. They tell him that Akira will take Tetsuo to a safe place and that Kei is starting to get psychic powers. Dr. Onishi sees a new universe being born, but he dies when his lab is destroyed. The huge explosion swallows most of Neo-Tokyo, then suddenly disappears. Water rushes in, filling the giant hole left behind. Kaneda feels sad about losing Tetsuo, but he soon finds Kei and Kaisuke alive. Together, they ride through the ruined city. Far away, Shikishima watches the sunrise. In the last moment, as a giant eye appears on the horizon and a voice says, "I am Tetsuo," he begins to understand the godlike powers that caused the disaster and his place in the birth of a new universe.